The Canon C50 and the Canon R6 III are two cameras that came out in 2025, and on paper, they actually share a lot in common. And absolutely, I think it would be a reasonable question to ask yourself, which camera should you be looking at? Now, it's going to depend a little bit on what kind of thing you shoot, but we are probably going to be looking at this mostly from a video-focused standpoint. And that's because the C50 is very much a video-focused camera. It does have some photo capabilities, but absolutely nothing compared to the R6 III, and it is a cinema camera. It's kind of the entry-level option in Canon's cinema range. So we're going to compare that with the R6 III from a video-focused standpoint and from an overall standpoint as well. Now, like I say, the C50 is that entry-level cinema camera in Canon's range, whereas the R6 III is absolutely a hybrid photo-video camera, but it still has some excellent video capabilities as well. And absolutely, like I mentioned in the intro, they both have a lot in common. They have the same sensor, so you're looking at a full-frame 32 megapixel CMOS sensor, and that means that you can get some really great resolution when it comes to video and of course photo as well. You can fully utilize the sensor in both cameras for video, as both cameras feature open gate, and that means you can shoot 7K 30p open gate. You can also shoot 7K 60p in RAW when you shoot in that 17:9 aspect ratio. You can shoot all the way up to 4K 120 if you want some super slow motion in a nice high resolution, and of course you have things like C-Log 2 and the ability to shoot RAW internally in both cameras, although there are some slightly different codecs for each camera. It's also fair to say that both cameras perform really quite well with higher ISO values. There is a slight difference with the maximum native ISO of both cameras, with the R6 III having a slightly higher value of 64,000, whereas the C50 goes up to 25,600. Although, to be completely honest with you, once you're shooting at those kind of levels, it's debatable how much use you're getting out of that outside of just being able to shoot in very, very dark situations. The fact that they perform very similarly in low light situations, though, is not particularly surprising when you consider that they have the same sensor. But that said, there are some differences between these cameras, and actually they can be quite noticeable. Let's start with the R6 III. Now, one of the biggest differences here is the R6 III has got in-body image stabilization in the camera. That's a big one if you want to be shooting handheld. If you want to shoot this run and gun style, absolutely that IBIS is going to make your life a lot easier with having that footage a little bit steadier. And of course, if you want to shoot photos, you can shoot with a slower shutter speed as well with the IBIS that you've got in that camera. You've also got a viewfinder here as well as the LCD screen, whereas the C50 does not have a viewfinder because it is a purely video focused camera. Now, how much use you're going to get out of the viewfinder will obviously depend on how you like to shoot and of course what you shoot as well. I do find myself sometimes using a viewfinder for video just because sometimes it can be nice to block out the world around you and actually use a viewfinder, but otherwise for the most part I am using either an LCD screen or an external monitor. Now that's an area where the C50 actually excels over the R6 III because the C50 has on-body mounting points. So you can actually mount a monitor directly to the camera without requiring something like a cage to go around it. You've actually got multiple on-body mounting points, so it's much easier to build out a rig. And of course, you have a handle available to pop on the top of the C50 as well. Now, not only does that make your life a little bit easier with regards to actually maneuvering the camera if you want, again, that run and gun style, but you also have things like 2 XLR inputs in the handle. So when it comes to audio, it's much easier to get everything in camera and everything sounding really, really nice with the C50. Now the R6 III does have significantly more focus points when we're talking about autofocus than the C50. In reality, it might not make that much of a difference when it comes to the video performance and actually the focusing in the video, but it could be important. And absolutely when it comes to photography, that is a big plus. It allows the R6 III to really perform very, very well all kinds of different genres, including fast-moving subjects. It's also fair to say that the R6 III does have a longer battery life as well. So if that's important to you, that is absolutely an area where the R6 III has the win. That said though, when it comes to video tools, the C50 has the R6 III beat. So you've got more codec options, more video-focused tools, so things like a timecode input, which is really, really useful for syncing everything up, shutter angle setting, and different monitoring and metering modes as well. Now, I would actually actually say that the menus are just generally better for video in the C50. And that's because the cinema camera menus for Canon EOS Cinema, I just think are much more useful when you come to actually changing different video settings than they are on the hybrid cameras like the R6 III. The hybrid cameras, I think the menus are great when it comes to photo and video, but the C50 for me has it beat when it comes to actually getting in deep with those video tools. And while it doesn't have that viewfinder that we mentioned on the R6 III, it does have a higher resolution LCD screen on the back. So that is a plus if you like shooting that way. A big advantage of the C50 though, when it comes to video, is that it has a fan built into the camera to counteract any overheating you might get, especially when you're shooting at those higher resolutions or higher frame rates. Now that means that even when you are shooting like that, including in hotter environments, you really won't have to worry about overheating. That's something which is invaluable, especially shooting video, because it's something I have come up against personally a number of times with all kinds of different cameras. So having that fan built in really helps to make sure that problem is not going to be an issue. So which camera should you buy if you're looking at both of these? Obviously on paper, like we've said, they share a lot in common and there's a lot of similarities between them, but there are these key differences. I think if you're a hybrid shooter, I think if you shoot photo and video and you really do swap between the two, then the R6 III is the obvious choice, right? It absolutely is a great option for photo and for video. You can achieve a huge amount with it, but it's going to be a lot easier to do both of those things with the R6 III. You're just going to get more out of it if that's the way you shoot. If you are more of a video focused person, especially pro video level, then the C50 might be the better option, especially if you're looking to scale this up to larger productions at some point. It's a great solo videographer camera, but it can absolutely make for a great B cam later on. There's a lot to really, really like about it. The one downside for me is just that lack of in-body image stabilization. But that's pretty easily overcome by just popping this onto a gimbal to get those lovely smooth shots. So for me, the R6 III is the obvious choice if you shoot any level of photo alongside video. But if you are a video focused shooter, then the C50 is probably the one to be looking at. Now you can check out both of these cameras over at parkcameras.com. I'll pop a link to both of these down in the description so it's easy to go and check them out. Don't forget to like, subscribe as well because there's new content all the time. I'll of course see you in the next video. But until then, as always, thanks for watching.